On today's live daily news, an update on the status of those victims in Monday's fatal crash, a look at how the weather will be the rest of this week, and what went down in front of Wild Bill's pawn shop this afternoon. Plus, the full Jackie Chestnut interview. All this and more. I'm Matt Trammell, and this is Live. But before we get to the news, this Saturday, San Angelo is in for a treat. The dynamic guitar duo, backed by a full rock band, Del Castillo, performs at the SAPAC Murphy Performance Hall. Del Castillo performs a high-energy Latin rock show with two brothers who are classically trained guitarists from Austin. Brought to you by the Green Apple San Angelo Music Series and sponsored by us, you'll be amazed by the musician that brings a fusion of Van Halen with Norteño and even some old-school mariachi sounds into the music. Tickets are on sale only for only $30 at greenapplemusic.com. Tickets are going fast, so get yours today. You can get them on Stubwire, the SAPAC website, and of course, sanangelolive.com. And now on to the news. We start the show today with an update from Monday's fatal crash. It was revealed today the conditions of the victims in the crash. Of course, you likely already know, but in the crash, a 2-year-old did pass away. As for her sister, the 4-year-old, she is still in a Lubbock hospital. It was discovered today the state of the motorcyclist as well. In a newly made GoFundMe for Jason Palmer, it was learned that Palmer is facing serious injuries, including a broken ankles, broken pelvis, and much more. He is also asking for help from the public, so if you want to go help, go to the GoFundMe on sanangelolive.com. In other news, a crash in front of Wild Bill's pawn shop today taught someone to keep an eye out for those two-way stop signs. According to officers on scene at around 1:30 this afternoon, a white Nissan Sentra was heading south on Martin Luther King Drive and was stopped at the stop sign on 14th. A black Lincoln was traveling westbound on 14th. The white Nissan failed to yield the right-of-way and entered the intersection where the two vehicles crashed. No one was injured in the crash, and the driver of the white Nissan was issued a citation for failure to yield the right-of-way. Moving into weather, today is the last day of the streak of excessive heat warning days. After tonight, the National Weather Service has downgraded the Concho Valley to a heat advisory. Why is that? Well, tomorrow and the day after, it's only going to be 104 out there, and by the time we get to Saturday, the high is only going to be 100. So enjoy this cool front. There is no rain in the forecast, but of course, to stay up to date with all the weather, check back on the Live Daily Show every weekday. And finally, we told you yesterday about the story of Jackie Chesnutt. Well, today you get to hear the story from her side. Before we get to the extended interview, though, here's a quick message from the Bass Bunch.
At Jim Bass Nissan, you have choices. And any way you go, you're going to save in a big way. You can choose from a new 2023 Nissan Armada SV or a new 2023 Nissan Titan Pro 4X Crew Cab and save $9,000 off MSRP. The choice is yours, but remember, the savings won't last long. Hurry into Jim Bass Nissan, corner of Houston Hart and Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at bassbunch.com.
Hello and welcome back. This is a special interview segment we do every live daily news show, and today we're going to dive deep into one of the stories that we've been working on for quite a while. It's about a woman here in San Angelo named Jackie Chestnut. Now, she used to be known as Jackie Robinson, but now she's changed her name to Jackie Chestnut since her husband has died. But the story is important to know about because it kind of shows how the entire Tom Green County judicial system, I think, basically failed this lady. And no one raised a red flag of what was happening, and it involves what I would call, some people could call it, elder abuse. So before we get started, I want to introduce you to Jackie Chestnut right here. And if you just go full, there we go. Jackie, welcome to the show.
Thank you
for coming
Thank
on. What the basic story of this is that you've had your life savings robbed from you.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And it happened with the manipulation of your husband,
Yes, sir.
you would believe. So before we get started with the story, tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Okay.
You know?
I grew up in basically Austin, Texas, and went to University of Texas, raised out on Lake Travis. That was where we were. And then I graduated from the University of Texas in 1979.
And what degree did you have?
And I have a biomedical and mechanical engineering
So
degree.
2 engineering degrees from
Yes,
UT.
sir. From UT.
And it's hard for me to say UT.
Yeah, well, I know you're. My little brother's an Aggie too. So, yes, sir. And then I graduated in '79, and I went to work for Alcoa Aluminum, and then I worked for Mobil Oil, and then I worked for Abbott Labs, and then I went to work for J&J at Ethicon here in San Angelo.
Right, so J&J is Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson & Johnson.
And that's what Ethicon is.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
how you arrived here in San Angelo
Yes, sir.
in 1994.
Right, and I retired from there as a project and staff engineer and worked in the facility for the entire time.
Okay, so now we know a little bit about who you are. Let's fast forward a little bit, and then we'll go back and fill in the pieces. But the pivotal date is October 23rd, right?
Yes, sir.
Of 2020.
Yes, sir.
October 23rd of 2020. And what happened was you and your husband Dennis. By the way, let's talk about Dennis for a second. Dennis was an accomplished businessman here
Yes,
in
sir.
San Angelo, and a lot of people don't know because of so far ago. But he owned Consolidated Contractors,
Yes, sir.
which was the contractor. There's a lot of landmarks around town that he built. For example, the Texas Bank Sports Complex.
Correct.
He remodeled the old Howard College there off of Knickerbocker, the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
That building was his. That he did. Also, the Consolidated State Offices building.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And most of the Paseo.
Right, most of the Paseo. And then one thing that everyone in San Angelo is probably familiar with, if you've seen an elementary school, there's a metal building next to it, like a gymnasium, right?
Right.
And it was Consolidated Contractors under Dennis's, your husband's
Yes, sir.
leadership, where they built that. Tell me a little bit about Dennis. Was he a smart businessman?
Oh, Dennis was an outstanding general contractor. Dennis could build anything, and he was an outstanding businessman. And he was working computers and all that kind of stuff, absolutely, and could direct anything. I always say he could build anything you asked him to build, and he was really good at it. Yes, sir.
Well, for my major in college, I majored in building construction,
Oh.
so I understand the big thing about being a good contractor is project management.
Correct.
Right? Making sure you keep things on budget, making sure you keep things on schedule. So he had to be good with numbers. He had to be good with
Right.
probably spreadsheets, I would think.
Spreadsheets were a big one. As a matter of fact, we even have a letter in his book from Robert Janelle expressing his appreciation for all the amazing work they did and how good it was, and he would recommend him as a contractor. Yes, sir. He was quite
All
well.
right.
Yeah.
So you're living life. You're living the good life. I mean, y'all married. Y'all were a good
Yeah.
team. And then this incident on October 23rd, 2020, when everyone showed up at your ranch, which y'all had purchased in Knickerbocker. And tell me what happened on October 23rd, 2020, or 20? Yeah, it was 2020.
Yes, sir. October 23rd, 2020. My husband had been having lots of problems because he'd had dementia, and we'd been having
But
issues.
when you say your husband's having dementia, a lot like my in-laws, I know that my father-in-law hid the dementia of his wife from other people. There was no need to go out and say, my wife is in stage 1 Alzheimer's or anything like that. He took care of things, so you didn't even know.
Well, actually, no, we knew. We were pre-diagnosing
I
in
mean,
Marble
like-
Falls,
but people around
people
you.
didn't know. No, we didn't put a tag on him that said, I'm pre-dementia, I'm in the states of no, sir. We did not. And I didn't tell people. I mean, it was like, you did just not. And so, but yes, sir, we knew something was very wrong in the testing, and we knew he was making decisions that weren't
And
normal.
you showed me some of the Shannon medical records from your husband that say that. They diagnosed that, and based on the type of drugs he was taking at the time and things like that. So back to October 23rd,
Yes, sir.
2020. What
Yes, sir.
happened?
So he got up in the morning. He couldn't walk without a walker. He was very sick, legs swollen, all kinds of problems. And when he got up that Saturday morning, actually before I did, he was very, very angry, and he left the house. And
this house, when you say the house,
apartment. I'm sorry, the apartment.
Well, it's out on the ranch. You kind of lived in a barn dominium.
We had a barn, exactly. We had built a barn dominium to live in while we built the house, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And he left.
So it's a long drive to town.
30 miles.
Right.
It's 30 miles into town, and he left, and I got up, and we were working on the house at that time.
And you had contractors everywhere.
Well, this day I didn't. It was a Saturday, but I had one contractor coming out, Brandon Miller, who would come out on Saturday and do odds and ends, and he was showing up in a little bit. And so I got ready, and he showed up, and I said, Brandon, I don't know what's going on with Dennis, but he's left and he's mad. And I said, I hope he's okay. He's not supposed to be driving. He had gotten the gangrene in his feet.
Was it normal for Dennis to get mad, especially, I mean, we know that in the medical profession they talk about, and I've seen it too in my own family, that an elderly person with dementia can get scared, and that's sometimes it comes off as anger,
Yes.
or it might make them angry because they're worried about their surroundings.
That's exactly, and what we've seen happening over the past couple of years, what I used to call eruptions, and they would be when he would get very frustrated, and a lot of it was frustration with himself because he didn't, and trying to get control and things, and they were getting closer and closer together. And when we got up here and into the apartment, and I think with all the stress going on and things, we began to see more and more and different things. So
All right, so on the 23rd in the morning, he's gotten up, he's gotten in his truck, and he's driven off.
And he's driven off.
And you don't know where he is.
No idea.
So did you want to go get him, or what?
Well, I figured he'd be back. I thought, well, maybe he had rented the office, which he wasn't supposed to do at that time. So I thought maybe.
So you were allowing him. He wanted to get. Watch out for the mic. He wanted you to get back with. He thought that to get back well, all he needed to do was start the business back up again and get going.
That's what in his mind, he was convinced that we could take everything we had and put it into bonding the business, and the business would be fine, and he would start the business up.
And it's a commercial contracting company, so you need big money to bond out some of these jobs to be able to bid on these jobs, especially government jobs.
500,000 to $1 million you have to have in the bank. It's is your insurance policy.
Right. Okay.
The minimum.
So he's thinking that maybe if I could start my business back up again, things would get better for me. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly.
And you're sitting there going, well, you're usually the wife is the one that's going to be risk adverse.
Right.
So you're risk adverse.
And also knowing his medical condition that he was failing at that. Mm-hmm. We had no money, all the problems with the emotions and all the stuff going on. I mean, he could barely walk. He couldn't walk from here to there. He couldn't walk anywhere without a walker. His legs, like I said, they were like stovepipes and stuff. And plus he was on 15 medications, and it was like, no, this is not a reasonable thing to do. We'd lost $750,000 on all these. No.
Was this a I guess a point of contention between you and your marriage?
No, just at this time, and when we'd moved back, and in July when he decided on his own to go out and rent this office, and I was like.
And it's costing you $2,200.
$2,200 a month, and I was like, we don't have $2,200 a month. We are living off Social Security checks. We have our savings that we have, and there's not. And we're trying to finish this house so we have a place to live, and we were just going to.
Okay, so the 23rd of October, he's driven off. You don't know where he is,
no idea.
And you're thinking that
he'll be back.
He'll be back.
He'll be back. Because I didn't know where I couldn't go chase him.
Right.
I called him several times, no answer, and then about 2 hours later, after Brandon got there, and we're doing some things, and I get a phone call, and that phone call comes, and a gentleman named Marshall Harrell is on the phone, and Marshall Harrell was the electrician working on the house, which is kind of weird. And he said, we're coming to get Dennis's bed. And I said, why are you coming to get Dennis's bed? What are you talking about?
Did you have any indication at this point that he was going to move out?
None.
Okay.
No. I mean, and at first I remember hanging up, and I was like, okay. And I went and got Brandon. I said, I just got a weird phone call. They're coming to get Dennis's bed. And I said to myself, I thought, why would they get his bed? And then I thought, are they going to take it to the office and put it in the office? Or I just didn't know.
Because you had no other place to sleep.
I didn't know there was any other place to go. I thought, were they going to the office with it? Where are they going to go? And it was a queen size bed that we had in storage while we were living in the apartment. And so I thought maybe they're.
And the apartment, so people aren't. That's the barn dominium.
The barn dominium, I should say. The barn. We call it the barn dominium. So we had, yes, sir, the barn dominium.
You're being noble by saying
yes,
apartment.
Yes, the barn dominium.
I don't want people to think it's an apartment in town.
No, sir. We call the barn dominium.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're coming to get the bed.
Yes.
So what happens next?
We go on, and about 30 minutes later, up pulls, and like I said, we're in the country, we're way up off the road, and up pulls Dennis's truck. And the first thing I noticed is Dennis is not driving his truck, which startled me. And Margarito Castaneda, who's a former employee of ours from many years ago, is driving Dennis's truck, and that's weird. And Dennis is in the passenger seat. And they pull up, and not only pull up, they turn up and they back up to one of the doors in our barn dominium. And I go over to the passenger side, and I'm like, "What are you doing, Dennis?" And Margarito comes around and gets Dennis and gets the walker out of the back and gets Dennis out of the truck. And I'm at this time going, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And Marshall Harrell has a trailer. He's right behind him, a truck on his trailer, and he pulls and he backs up to the other door. and opens up his trailer. And I'm like, what are y'all doing? And then they walked Dennis into our apartment, or excuse me, into the barndominium apartment, where we have 2 recliners, which we'd had set up. We had recliners in bed, temporary living thing, and they put him in the recliner. Now, Dennis had just had a cardiac cath 3 days before this. He wasn't supposed to be doing anything, and I'm like,
so he basically had heart surgery
3 days before he had the big old thing on his leg, and he was not supposed to be doing anything. And I said, what are you doing? And you shouldn't even be doing this, and you're not supposed to be. And it was just crazy. And
what did he say to you?
And he turned to me after they got him in the chair, and then they all disperse into the house, and they start taking stuff out of the barndominium. They start taking all kinds of things.
And Dennis is sitting in the middle of the barndominium. Do you ask Dennis, what are you doing?
And I went to Dennis. I said, and I'm screaming at this point, what are you doing? Now these people are dispersing. And he says, I'm leaving here. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not allowed to know where I'm going, because if I do, I might tell you. And my words to him were, are you out of your mind?
So what was his mental, what do you think his mental capacity at that point was?
Very little, because he was on so many medications. I mean, he was sitting there, he could barely even, he was not even there, I could tell. He was just, here, he was sitting in the chair. He couldn't even walk at all without that. He was out, and all he would say is, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm leaving here. I don't know where I'm going. So I went out then, and I'm going to the 3 men, Margarito and Marshall and Roger, and I'm going, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You're taking our stuff, you're hauling off stuff, and they were hauling off. They were emptying the back closet where we had all of our tools, our guns and ammo.
Wait, you had tools?
We had several things there. Out in our shop building, we had all our tools and equipment.
How much money and tools do you think you had?
It was $50,000 to $100,000. We had.
So it was like a general contractor's tools.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
We had all of our general contractor tools and our ranch tools, because that's what we were doing. And we'd bought some new tools for working on the house. So it was all the tools we collected over the years: Hilti drills, saws, you name it, we had it.
So valuable.
Valuable. Right. Oh yeah. One bit might be $400.
Right.
Yeah, they were very expensive.
And then you said you also had guns?
And we had guns. My husband was a huge guns and ammo collector. That was his thing. And he had all kinds of them. And I didn't keep track in detail of them, but I knew quite a few of them. And the whole back closet was full of the Green Army containers with ammo in them. And he numbered them actually. And they're all numbered.
So all different types of ammunition.
All different kinds of ammunition. Because he had 220s, he had AR-15s, he had all kinds of handguns. We had shotguns. He had bought me shotguns.
How many guns do you think he had?
I think I made a list, and I know of at least 10 to 12, and there were that many cases and containers. And then plus I had my guns, which they took some of the ones he'd bought me, so there were a few there, and I made a list of those. And then ammo, and I figure all of it was worth probably somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000. So he collected them over the years. Some of these he'd had since he was a teenager.
So they weren't just working guns; they were collectible guns.
Oh no, he collected most of these weren't. Excuse me, some of these weren't even ever shot. They were just collectibles because he loved. He did all the stuff on how the twists turn. He ordered a Win Mag 300, and he ordered special ammo like I said, it was something he was details on that.
All right, so what else did they get? Did they get the bed?
Yeah, they did get the bed. They got the bed, and they got the dresser that went with the bed, and one of the side tables that went with the bed. Okay. And the reason they took the dresser, his chest of drawers, is because that's where we had books of silver. And they hauled the whole dresser out.
When you say books of silver, what is the book of silver?
We collected silver. That was our savings, our precious silver and gold and precious metals. And Dennis particularly loved the details of it, and numismatist and all that stuff. And he liked to collect the American silver eagles, and in the year things where they had all the years in a row, and he had like 12 books of those, each worth probably $1,500, $2,000, with just all the.
So you had a dresser with books of these.
With books of these
collections of silver eagles.
Yes, sir, and they were vacuum sealed, as a matter of fact, because we vacuum sealed them all to protect them, and so they were.
All right. So did you have any? You had more precious metals on the ranch.
Yes, sir.
You had like a filing cabinet full of it.
Yes, sir. We had a small closet in between the big closet, and we had 2 4-drawer file cabinets.
Those are the
two
big tall
4-drawers. Oh yeah, and one of them was a legal size, and these were full of our silver coins, totally full of boxes of. They're called monster boxes, and all the collectibles.
You say a monster box? That's something you buy from like a silver dealer.
You buy that from somebody like Amex, and it's got 500 coins in it at a time, and it can nowadays it would cost you $15,000 to $18,000.
So a lot of your retirement was in precious metals.
It was all. That was our retirement. Dennis and I were the oddballs that believed in precious metals. That's what we did. We didn't have stocks. We didn't have bonds. And I had 401ks for a while and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we moved it all.
Now you have these 3 men with Dennis. And with Dennis is maybe you're saying in a demented state.
Oh yeah.
And you have these 3 men that are taking your I mean, that's community property.
It's community property.
Right? So
and I was screaming
you own
at
half
them.
of it. You own half of it.
I was
so
screaming.
that's like theft.
I was screaming at them the whole time. You're taking my stuff. What are you doing taking my stuff? How dare you?
Did you feel intimidated by this?
Absolutely. I was absolutely threatened. They were like pushing me aside. They were like, get out of my way. Now I'm half built and I'm 66 years old. And yes, I was very threatened. I was going crazy. I went down and got Brandon and I said, Brandon, come watch what they're taking. I can't stop them. They're just taking. And he came up there and he started watching what they were doing and they were just hauling. And
so you couldn't stop them
I couldn't stop them at all.
Did you call the police?
At the moment, I didn't call the police. Because at the time, I realized now I should have called the police and sheriff at that time, but I didn't really realize what was going on. It was one of those things I was so shocked. I had no idea.
Especially with your husband sitting right there.
And my husband sitting right there. And
and I guess for years, I know this in a lot of relationships, the husband, the man, is kind of the protector.
Absolutely. He's always been my protector.
And so you're thinking, well, maybe it's going to work out. Well, maybe I don't understand it now.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on. And also, because these three men had no idea of my husband's medical or mental conditions. They had no right to come in there and touch our community property in any way, shape, or form for any reason. Yes, and my husband was sitting there, and I knew what also my fragile state of my husband. He just had a cardiac cath, and I'm like,
so of the silver, the guns, and the tools, how much money do you think they took?
Oh, it was at this point. It looks like it was between $1.5 and $2 million by the time I totaled it all up. Because at the time I didn't have an exact total on the silver until I went back and looked at what we had, the precious metals and all that stuff, and it looks to be about that. And the other thing that is so strange about this, as I went out to the three men and I kept saying, "Where are you taking my husband?" They said, "We don't know where we're taking him. We're not allowed to know." But we're getting him out of here. Nobody knew where they were taking my husband at that point. And I'm sitting here losing my mind going, are you kidding me? You're going to take my husband to work someplace that doesn't know. And I went into Dennis and I said, Dennis, you're going to let somebody take you where you don't know where you're going?
Were you you were more concerned about Dennis's welfare than you were about the silver?
This was my husband who I was his caretaker taking care of him. He couldn't do anything for himself, and he's now leaving. And when they left, and then they didn't take his medications, they took...
Wait.
Okay,
so this guy's on how many medications at this
15.
time? 15 medications.
15 medications.
And they left.
And
They got the bed, the nightstand, and the dresser drawers with the silver in it.
With the silver in it.
And they didn't take his prescription medications.
No, and he'd just been on 2 new antidepressants.
And he's just out of the hospital from having angioplasty, right?
From cardiac cath, where they go, cardiac cath. Yes, sir.
Well, okay. So you don't. So at this point, you're his caretaker. What are you going to do to find him?
Well,
what are you thinking?
At first, I was freaked out.
I mean, they left, right?
They left. Oh, they left. They left. They booked, and there was no stopping them. And so I start calling Dennis. Well, at first he wouldn't answer the phone. Now, Dennis also at this point was legally deaf and legally blind, and phones were not his friend, cell phones particularly. But I kept calling, and I could get him occasionally, and I'd say, Dennis, where are you? I need to come get you. And he'd say, I don't know where I am. I'm not telling you. I don't know where I am. I was like, are you kidding me? I said, Dennis, I need to know where you are. And he kept, don't know where. And I called Marshall and Margarito and these people, and I begged them, where have you taken my husband? We're not allowed to tell you. And this went on for like a week. And then all of a sudden, I got on the phone one time. I got him on the phone, and his daughter got on his phone.
His daughter,
Aaron Gregg, got on the phone.
So his daughter comes back into your life at this point? Is that what happened?
She had been calling while we were in the apartment, and Aaron would call every 6 months to a year. In the barn dominium. In the barn dominium, correct. And she would call, and initially we were in there, it was kind of strange because she was asking him lots of questions about his medical condition.
Who was?
Aaron was asking Dennis lots, and she was a big masker, and she was trying to force him on all that stuff, and she was not happy. She just, she was asking about assets, which I thought was weird because Dennis was talking a lot about that, and I was just hearing bits of conversations. But these were conversations that she would call us once a year, maybe, and not us, Dennis, once a year.
All right, so let's back up. So now Dennis is missing.
Dennis is missing.
All right, and so is $2 million worth of stuff.
All of our assets, all of our community assets.
And you have,
no clue.
It's not like you have a T. Rowe Price account where you can say I had this exact amount of money. It's like you have a bunch of silver and books and monster boxes and stuff like that. So it's not really provable exactly. You can't just say, look at this statement.
Right.
So that makes, and also you can't do that for the guns either.
Except for now we can do that for the silver because I have shown them, there are statements for how much silver we have, and I've turned all those in. But the guns, no, absolutely not.
So at this point, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but I want the audience to understand what happened. So you are basically back by yourself, living in the barn dominium by yourself. You're trying to build this house, and this house that you built. It actually has handicapped access. It has wide hallways, wide doorways, ramps, that kind of stuff. So you were building it, and he was in on it, building with you,
Correct.
getting ready for the end of life, basically.
And the barn-dominium was also built to ADA compliance. And then also, so the couple days after he left, or it was on Saturday, and then this following Sunday. So Monday, all the crews showed up again at the house. So Monday morning, after he left, I've got the plumbers, the electrician, the carpenters, because I'm
So
running
now
the job.
you become the general contractor.
I already was the general. I was running it.
Right.
Anyway, you can ask Kelly
Right.
and all the other people. Yeah, I was the one running.
He probably didn't have the capacity well at that point.
Dennis couldn't even walk down to the house.
Right.
He had to get in his gator to go to the house. Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
that's the day of. He answers the phone. I guess you just hear him breathing on the other side.
He would say, "I'm not telling you." I'd go, "Where are you?" "I don't know. I'm
Okay.
not telling you." I don't.
What about day one,
Okay.
day two, day three, day four? What happens? I mean, you're still trying to find him.
I'm just calling him, trying to get hold of him. Sometimes he answered, sometimes he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, about a week later, it was, and I can't tell you the exact time, but I got on the phone trying again,
Mm-hmm.
and his daughter picked up his phone, and she said, "You will never speak to my father again." And I was like, "What?" I didn't. Number one,
Was there any indication that he wanted to leave you?
no,
None.
none, no,
Okay.
no.
But I mean, he was upset that you were not supportive of him opening up a business.
He was upset that I was not doing everything he wanted, which was if it were in his mind, he would put everything up and go start up with the business. And also, he wanted to go get hyperbaric chamber treatments on his gangrene, which is not what you have to do. He didn't want to
And
get
gangrene is on his feet,
Toes.
toes or feet.
and because you have to have amputations to clear it.
Was he worried about you amputating his feet, cutting his feet off, or something like
yeah,
that?
he didn't want he didn't want it authorized. He didn't want to do it. He also was mad because he had just spent $50,000 out of our money for the house, and I said no more. You're not, because I'm trying to get the business gone. So he was mad that I was saying that. So I was trying to do a little bit of, that whole guardianship power of attorney kind of thing, and say you can't do this, and trying to stop it. And he didn't like it.
Yeah.
As I can
Which is
understand.
typical. It's typical in a lot of cases like
Sure.
that, where one of the members of the couple, or he gets older and he wants to do things, and he says, "No, you can't do it."
And one of the things with dementia is you're not thinking about the long-term consequences of the actions you're making. You're just
Right.
you're dealing in.
So you're mean Jackie to him, probably.
Right. Oh, he was furious with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was the one that was not letting him start his business. I was the one that wouldn't hawk up everything to start the business. Yeah, he was, and then I was trying to tell him to get his toes off.
And so he's running toward his daughter.
And then in the meantime, which like I said, I didn't know there was this relationship going on there. His daughter rented an apartment, unbeknownst to me, on September 30th, 2020, 3 weeks before he left. Now, I didn't know that happened.
So it looks like it was being planned. He was working with his daughter to get out.
The daughter, I would say, took advantage of and just went and did what Daddy wanted to do, which is what I was trying to stop him from doing. And not only that, but at that time, she managed to get into our checking accounts. So she then got into all our financial accounts at that point and got into and set up the payments out of his Social Security check. So she did all that.
So she was able to rent the apartment with community property, basically.
Correct. And the apartment was leased in her name and his name.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So he moved. So presumably he moves into some apartment on Sunset.
Correct. Well, I didn't know that at that time because
Right.
wherever he went,
Right.
he left.
But you still have no idea.
None.
And when the daughter got on the phone and said, "You will never talk to my daddy again."
Right. And I had gone by the office several times, like, just to see if he was there. He was never there. I couldn't find him. And she said, "No, you'll never." And click. The phone went click. And I could, from that point, I never could get him on the phone. And I've got his phone back. And you can see where I was erased and blocked. And
So you got his phone back after he passed away.
Yes, sir.
And you can go in there and look and see that your number was blocked, and also your name and everything. Your contact was erased from the phone.
Not only mine, but most of my family, and even a couple of his major friends. Our insurance agent was blocked. It's all in the block. He was blocked from many people that were, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you didn't know what's going on. Why didn't you call the police?
Well, at first, I just thought, okay, this can't be happening. You do this kind of whatever, and I'm getting a hold of him. And then after she did that, and then I started to think, I thought, well, I'll call Shannon and I'll find him, because I figured he was at Shannon at some point in time. And I'm calling them, and I didn't call the police, I think, or the sheriff for like a month or 6 weeks or something. I don't remember. I even remember. It's getting so. I was just frantic. I mean, I was going to town trying to find him. I'm begging everybody I know. Where is my husband? The people that not
To include attorneys.
Right. Well, not at this point because there were no attorneys involved.
Okay.
Okay. Because no, he had just disappeared. So I'm begging Roger and Marshall and Margarito, and of course then they quit talking to me altogether. And by this point, several weeks ago, mine Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, and then I'm really freaking out. And then
October 23rd is the last time you saw her husband, and now it's Christmas Day, and you still have no idea where he is.
None.
And you're married to him.
Yeah. None.
Okay.
And we've been and it was horrifying. I went through Thanksgiving. His birthday was October.
And you didn't call the police?
Not at this point. I just did. It was.
Were you intimidated, or were you?
I think I just kept thinking, well, he's going to come home because he didn't take any of his personal stuff or whatever. I can't. It's weird. I just kept thinking, surely this can't be, and I would go home, and I can't. And you can. They'd have to go back and pull the records to see when I actually started calling the police and the sheriffs. And like I said, I'm thinking like Marshall Harrell. Surely they're going to tell me where he is. And in January, I finally got Marshall Harrell to relent and tell me that he knew Dennis was over at Concho Inn, at Inn of the Conchos.
So that's a hotel.
It's a hotel. The hotel, yes, downtown Inn of the Conchos. And I was like, what is he doing there? Now, this was during the big freeze. You know, remember the big freeze? We all do. And
this is in February of 2021.
February of 2021, and we'd lost power out in Knickerbocker for a week. And I'm begging everybody again. Where is my husband? I mean, because I don't know if he's not dead by now.
So this is probably, let's see, November, December, January.
1st of February.
So it's been over 3 months.
Right. And now, I'm sorry, let me back up. In January, when I was calling Shannon, finally he was in the hospital at the end of January, and Shannon said, I'm not talking to you anymore. You're not allowed to talk to us. And I was like, what?
So the wife of a guy that is a patient in Shannon could not know he's there or talk to him.
I could not know he's there or talk to him. I gave him his social security number, all the stuff. I said, I'm his power of attorney, I'm his wife and everything. They said, no, we've been told you can't talk to him anymore. I said, who? They said, you're off. We can't. And they, from that point on. And so I couldn't, I was just shocked.
So at what point did you go hire a lawyer?
Well, I didn't. No, I didn't hire a lawyer at this point either. Okay. So then, we got notified that the house we had up for sale in Marble Falls had sold.
So you had moved temporarily to Marble Falls. Y'all thought, well, you had some health problems. Maybe you retire in Marble Falls.
Right.
And then y'all decided at some point to sell the house in Marble Falls and move back.
Actually, on our 25th wedding anniversary on December 10th of 19, we sat together and decided we would make a final attempt to move back home, and we did that. And then we moved 4 months later back here, and then we started with the house. And then, That's
when you took this old farmhouse, you're going to remodel it. Meanwhile, you're going to live in the barn dominium.
Right, in the barn dominium.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir. And so anyway, so in February, then they're not talking to me. And so on February 4th, I got notified we'd sold the house. And I said, I don't know where Dennis is.
So you were handling the sale of the house in Marble Falls. You got notified by your realtor.
My realtor that we'd sold the house. Well, it was both of us. It was a community property thing. So they notified me, and I sent an email to Dennis because I can't talk to him. I can't find him. I don't know where he is. And I sent him an email on February 4th saying, honey, we've sold the house. I need you back home. Everything's okay. We'll just get on down the road. And then, so they got that on.
So you're thinking he might be upset, and that's why he's hiding from you? That's what the deal is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also that he doesn't want his toes cut off. This is like a kid who ran away. He ran away. He didn't want to get it. This is exactly like a kid that ran away from he didn't want to get it done.
Right.
Because you have to understand his mental state. And so then I send that. Well, and I get no response. I mean, and I don't. And what I know now is that of course his daughter was handling all the email and stuff. So then from that point, I talked Marshall Harrell into giving me one time a location, and this one they put him out at the end of the Conchos. And I now know from the medical records that Miss Gregg had told them that Dennis should have been in long-term care, but he had no place to live.
So wait. He's going from living in an apartment on Southwest to Shannon, and now he should be in long-term care.
They just told him.
Which is a nursing home.
A nursing home.
Right.
They just told that he needs to be in a nursing home. Right. But she said, well, he doesn't have any place to go that has electricity right now, and he has no place to live. Now, there's an apartment supposedly over here that they're paying for that's been, but whatever, he can't go there. And so Shannon opts to take a man who's just had his toes amputated, just had another heart attack and stroke. They did a bypass on him that they weren't supposed to do, and they put him out at Inn of the Conchos to be taken care of for a few days, instead of, because they couldn't put him anywhere else.
So was his daughter with him?
No.
Okay.
Nobody was with him.
So he's by himself in an Inn of the Conchos hotel room.
Yes, and from the records.
And this is from what you
the medical records.
The medical records.
The medical records. And the medical records also say they weren't sending food over there. There was a problem getting food over there. And then what happened, Marshall Harrell finally relented. He had actually come out to my house. My husband had told Marshall Harrell to go see if I had electricity and check on me. So he came out to my house.
So he still cared about you.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
He sent him out there. And so he helped me get a temporary generator set up. And I'm like, where is my husband? I was losing my mind. And he finally relented, and he said, he's at the end of the Conchos. So I said, I'm going to my husband. So I drove in on that snowy, horrible, icy, and remember, it's dark, it's winter. And I drove in that morning, and by the time I got to Inn of the Conchos and went into his room, and I hadn't had a bath or anything or whatever, and I took my clothes with me. I thought I'll take a shower and get him, and we'll go home. And when I got there, he was gone.
We'll get back to Joe and Jackie in just a second. First, we're going to take a little bit of a break, so stay tuned. But first, here's a quick message from Carpet Tech.
Our job is about so much more than cleaning floors. It's about personal investment.
Sometimes it's just taking the time to listen and show you care.
When you make the effort to connect, you realize we're all on the same team.
Even the smallest of efforts can make a big impact.
At Carpet Tech, serving is always personal.
And what happened is on the way there, Marshall Harrell had come and taken him back over to Shannon, to Dr. Harvey, back over to Shannon Hospital. He'd had another heart. He'd overdosed on his drugs.
While he was at Inn of the Conchos. How many days do you think he was in Inn of the Conchos?
He was there 4.
4 days without any kind of care?
Nobody there, nothing.
So not even the typical Medicare in-home health providers?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And they were supposed to be, and the room was trashed with to-go stuff. And I know from the medical records now that a gentleman dropped off a whole load of medication. I've actually got the bottles of OxyContin and all these other medications. And so he overdosed, and probably intentionally at that point. And Marshall got there, and Marshall took him back. And I was like, Marshall, where is he? And I waited, and he never came back, and it started to get dark. So I had to go home. And again, I'm calling Shannon, and they're like, we can't talk to you. And I'm like, this is insane. Okay. And
have you engaged a lawyer at this time?
Okay, no.
Nothing.
No. I've gone to the police and the sheriff's now by this point.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. You sell the house.
Sell the house.
So, and that's a good sum, about
$740,000.
So almost $750,000.
$750,000.
So now you sold the house, and then what happens next?
And then I sell the house, send the notice, and the closing is going to be done March 10th at Shelburne Financial, because they've been our accountants for years. The other people are in Marble Falls, the title company's in Marble Falls, and so I tell them where to come, and of course that's where we've been for years. So I go to March 10th, I go to closing, and I have no idea if Dennis is going to be there. I mean, I don't, because I've not heard a word. I don't know where he is. I can't. He's gone. The office. Oh, by the way,
and you haven't seen him up to this point.
No.
And what was the day again?
March 10th.
March 10th. So this is October 23rd,
November, December, January, February, March.
So about 4.5 or 5.
5 months.
5 months, yeah.
And at this point, our office that he rented was across the street. Now, at this point, I went to the office ahead of time. The office was gone. It was emptied. So somewhere between at the end of February.
Were you checking on the office before?
Yeah, I'd been going by the office periodically to see if I could find him, because I thought he might be there, because it was technically there, and they actually paid rent on it for 6 months that they shouldn't have, and left it there. But yeah, he was not there because he was in hospitals and And so I was thinking maybe I'd find him there, but he was not. And then this day it was gone. It was closed. So
okay, this day in March, you're closing,
right?
And you have not seen your husband up until this point.
Correct. At all. Or talked to him.
Since October 23rd, 2020. So
or spoken, yes.
So this is 4 to 5 months later.
Correct.
And you're sitting there,
right.
And what's going to happen there?
And here's what happens. And I go in, and his truck is nowhere. So I'm thinking, we're in trouble, because I didn't see his truck in the parking lot.
So you need him to sign.
Because I need him to sign. Now, theoretically, I'm POA, I could have signed or whatever. But yeah, and this is my husband. We need to sign. And plus, I'm thinking, he'll get there and we'll go home. Honey, it's okay. We've got everything. It's okay. We'll go home. I mean, I hadn't seen him. And so I walk in, and you walk into a conference, Shelburne, and there's a conference room, and he was already sitting in the conference room along with Michelle, our accountant, and Judith, our accountant and notary there, people that we've known for years. And I walk in there, and he's got his walker, and he's beet red, and he looks horrible. And I'm like, thank goodness you're here. Let's get this done. Let's go home. I don't know what's going on, but let's just be done. And he turns to me and he says, I'm not signing those documents. And I was like, what? He's mad. And Michelle and them were like, because they've known us for years. And then he picks up the phone and he dials a phone number, and a gentleman gets off the phone and he puts him on, I think, speakerphone at that time, and it's James P. Sadler. I don't know who James.
Who's an attorney in town.
Who's an attorney in town. I don't know who James P. Sadler is.
Right.
And James P. Sadler says to me and to Michelle and everybody there, I am not letting that man sign those documents until you agree to put the whole thing into an escrow account in my lawyer's company, and let us decide who gets what. And I said, are you out of your mind?
So this is $750,000 basically, $760,000, and as they're kind of holding it hostage, holding the signature from Dennis hostage, unless you agree to put the proceeds of that sale,
the whole sale,
into an escrow account that you don't control.
Right. They wanted me to do that, and then I said, "Are you crazy? You're out of mind." And I told everything a bit, and he said, "No, you're going to put half of it." And I said, I'm not putting a dime of it.
So they went from all of it, now they're going to half of it?
Right.
Okay.
Now Michelle Poppy is my accountant, and the other one, Judith, they're sitting there listening to this, and the title company is on there. And this is getting pretty heated because they're like, we're not signing. This went on for 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, he's going to sign it. I went through the fact that these people are moving from Colorado. We have a legal document signed. They're moving in the house. We can't not sign this document. Yeah, it's a community sale. We got stuff, whole thing.
Right.
And he's getting madder and madder. And Dennis is just sitting there the whole time.
Right.
He's drugged. Dennis has had 3 toes off at this point. He has no idea what's going on.
No, let's back up for a second.
Okay.
Stop. Remember, we're in the closing room.
Right.
So you went back after Dennis was gone, and you finally got access to records and stuff. You went back and looked at the Shannon records.
Yes, sir.
So tell me what was the prognosis during this signing, that day of the signing?
Well, the day of the signing, I now know from the records that on March 9th, the day before, they took Dennis out of Shannon Hospital against medical advice. He had just had all 3 toes taken off on his right foot. He was still gangrened. He had just had another heart attack and another stroke, and they just put him on all of his antipsychotics and noted he was already having psychosis. He was begging to go be with God. There's all this in the hospital records. So that's on March 9th. They take him out, and they're insistent they take him out. And Dennis says, I'm getting out. I got to get out.
All right. So his daughter, who's insisting?
His daughter and he both are insisting. And Dennis particularly is telling him he's getting out of the hospital. He's got to go do something. So they take him out. And on March 10th,
so it wasn't Shannon saying kicking
No.
him out. Shannon wanted him to stay.
Shannon said, you need to go to long-term care. Shannon said, you need to go to long-term care.
So Shannon was doing the right thing.
Shannon was doing the right thing. Shannon was absolutely telling them, he's got to go to long-term care. And they're like, nope, don't have it. We're taking him out of here. He's got an apartment.
So he was in no condition to leave the hospital.
None.
Probably not in any kind of condition to make a big legal decision.
None.
Right.
He was on more medications now. He was on 18 medications. He's had more heart attacks and strokes at this time. He'd had 2 more. He had now had more amputations, anesthesia, all the other stuff that had going on. And he's been moved. Now, here, worst thing you can do for a dementia patient, he's been moved by this time. We can count at least 10 times, because in and out, hospitals, hotels, back to the apartment. He was actually living in the office for a while, so he. And so then they take him out. He comes there.
And do you think that he wanted to come back to the ranch? I mean, you got this nice condominium. Why would he not want to come back to that?
Well, actually, all the medical records say that he kept telling them, I'm just going to get some treatment and I'm going back to the ranch. He said he was mad at me, but he was going back to the ranch no matter what.
So why do you think he didn't come back to the ranch?
Well, from that point on, March 10th happens, and of course I don't know what they've been telling my husband on this other side. And let me back up from the medical records. His daughter's already told them and called them Adult Protective Services, told them that we're fighting and I've been abusing my husband. At this point, that started in January.
And so the accusation's been made. You don't know this accusation's been made, but it's impacting the healthcare provider's treatment of you.
Correct.
Right?
Correct, because I was turned in for abusing my husband to APS, and that my husband said I wasn't doing his medical decisions, and the daughter told him that.
So the very protective service, adult protective service in the state, which is designed to protect elderly people, was turned against you as a weapon.
Correct.
Okay.
And they never called me. No one
ever called you to find out, hey, Jackie, why are you abusing your husband?
Right. Or if I was, or if his living situation or anything, because he was saying.
But I think if I were an APS officer and I saw the living conditions of this man and his condition, and I reviewed his medical records, I'd say, there's something going on here. But no one did that. No one took time to raise a red flag and say something's going on.
No.
So that's a failure
It's a
on
failure.
part of these very state agencies that are supposed to protect us.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And then the words started getting thrown around early in January about a divorce, which we'd never spoken of divorce in our life.
Wait. Well, let's back up. So we kind of know what the condition. He's not in
Right.
very good condition
Right.
when he sees you on March 10th for the signing.
Right.
Does
So-
he ever sign the buy-sell
So
agreement?
here's what happens. We go along, and Michelle and them they close the door of the conference room. They're freaked out. They don't know what's going on.
These are the people
Michelle
that-
Poppy, the accountant,
Right.
and Michelle pops up and says, Michelle Poppy, she says, let's just have Dennis sign the closing document, and let's let the title company hold the money while we resolve this.
Okay.
I said, brilliant. So Dennis says, and it says, okay. Now, so Dennis says, okay, he signs the papers. Now, Dennis immediately, now Sadler is starting now to yell at the title company, don't you let them touch that
Over the
money.
phone?
Over the phone. He's yelling at them.
So the
"Don't
phone's
you-"
sitting there on the table
Right.
on speakerphone?
Right, on speakerphone, and he's telling the title company, don't you let her touch this money. Don't you let her touch. He's screaming at them. The accountant's trying to make sure it's signed, talks to the title company. In the meantime, before I know it, Dennis has gotten up and walked out 50 feet out the door. I go to the door, he's gone.
So he's walking?
He's with his walker. I mean, he's like, and I'm trying to stop him. Stop! And I'm yelling at the title company. We got the title company yelling. We've got Sadler yelling. Everybody's going, and I'm like, what? And then he's gone. He goes out the door, and I walk, and he's gone. So I assume
Did
they
he
picked
drive
him up.
himself there?
No, there was no truck there. I assume they were parked across the street, and they picked him up when he came out
Who's
the door.
they?
His daughter and Elgin and Aaron and Elgin Gregg. Aaron is his adopted daughter from 40 years ago, and Elgin is her husband, and they were in town that day because they took him out of the hospital, and so I assume they picked him up because there was no truck when I got there, and he was just gone, and he can't walk that fast.
So with the daughter, this is his daughter, not your daughter.
Yes, sir.
She's your stepdaughter.
Yes, no, yes, sir.
With your daughter involved in this, also, did his ex-wife get involved in this too?
Well, his ex-wife had gotten involved back before we moved to Marble Falls.
So his ex, so you're the wife,
Right.
The ex-wife who he divorced probably sometime before
45 years ago.
45 years
40
ago.
years ago,
She
yeah.
comes back into his life, and she's trumping you.
And when she started coming into the office and visiting as he was closing down, which I thought was really weird, but I thought, well, okay, whatever.
So you're not a controlling woman?
No,
is
and
that-
I thought maybe she was just helping him pack up and do some
Right.
stuff. I mean, I'd never really thought that big a deal. She didn't live here until about 6 or 7 years ago when she moved back from Dallas, and it was like, okay, whatever. And we
But
were.
you weren't worried about it. You weren't
No.
like you weren't competing.
No,
No,
I just thought she would. I thought maybe they were doing something nice, because I don't,
Well, they had a daughter together, so
Yeah, they had a daughter together, and then also this is when Donna started bringing Aaron in a lot the 6 months while I was down there.
So when you were away, he's up here by himself, and they got more acquainted with him, so to speak.
Correct, and during that time he had another heart attack and stroke before he came down there.
Did you come back for that?
And I was not. I was in surgery, but he was up here, and in Margarito.
So you were having your own health problems.
I was having my own health problems,
Right.
and I was told they were helping take care of him, and I said that I appreciate that, y'all.
So
'cause-
Donna and the daughter
And
were
the
taking
daughter.
care of him. So
I said, yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't see any problem with that. You were actually thankful.
Right, and he was living in the barn dominium at that time at the ranch because until we moved down there, and I
Mm-hmm. Right.
thought, okay, well they're coming out and checking on him.
Okay,
And,
so
okay.
so you got the money for the house.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
And-
it went into
What-
the community property.
Well, here's what happened. First of all, Sadler tried to stop the title company from giving me the money. I had to prove up to the title company.
Who is Sadler representing?
Supposedly Dennis.
Okay.
He's representing Dennis. Now, there's no paperwork or anything about him being anything, but to my knowledge. And so he calls the title company, and the title company actually complained and sent him to the supervisor because they were so abusive to him, trying to get the money.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
then,
what the title company told you?
oh yeah, she was like, "Who is this guy?" She said, and I had already
Mm-hmm.
proved to them it was legally our money. Sorry, and so they were going to send it to me. And when they found out they were going to send it to me, Sadler went ballistic. He called her boss.
But you got the money.
Yeah, I got the money.
You got the money.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. And right after that happened, then another thing, very monumental thing happened.
Right.
When all of a sudden you get divorce papers.
Right. And I got the money, and I paid off the bills we were supposed to pay and the loan, and did that kind of thing. And then at the end of March, unbeknownst to me, I got served a divorce petition. Not divorce papers. I got
From who?
For a divorce petition from my husband.
So Dennis
From Dennis.
You think Dennis filed for divorce?
So Dennis or somebody filed for a divorce, even though in the medical records he says his daughter's the one to talk to about the divorce. But yes,
All right, so
my husband was.
What day was it? It was in the end of March.
Well, actually, the divorce petition was filed into court by James P. Sadler on March 17th. Now,
Okay.
Dennis was in the hospital that day having his foot cut off.
Okay.
Okay, that's the day it was filed.
So
in.
he'd already had his toes cut off.
And now, yes, sir.
Now
and
they're
now
just
they're doing
moving up the
foot.
leg.
They keep moving it. They're moving up the leg.
And what kind of mental state was he in on that day?
He was in full psychosis. On that day, in the medical records on March 17th, he is begging to go be with God. He's begging to make sure his DNR is on. It's all in there. Please let me get out of here. He doesn't have a clue.
And to understand, when you're in Shannon, they have social workers go and talk to the patients that are having trouble.
Correct.
And they take meticulous notes.
Meticulous notes.
And so there's these meticulous notes of what's happening, and we'll kind of give you a glimpse of what his mental status was.
Right.
So on the day that the paperwork is filed, he's in psychosis, getting his foot cut off.
Getting his foot cut off and begging to go be with God. He's playing, please don't let me live. I mean, it's in the notes. And they're all like, so yes, sir. And then 12 days later, I think it was, I get served with a divorce petition.
So it took him 12 days after you
Yes,
filed
sir.
it. Okay.
After-
Did anyone sign I mean, this is interesting, I thought. No one is, if you're filing a lawsuit,
Right.
you're not required. If you're the plaintiff, you're not required to sign anything.
Apparently.
Basically, I mean, it's the same thing with
Right.
a lawsuit. If I
Right.
were to sue, Firestone for, bad tires or something, I don't have to sign the lawsuit.
Right.
It just has to go through the legal system.
Right.
But the legal system assumes that these people that are doing it are officers of the court.
Correct.
Right? And so they're held to a higher standard
Correct.
than like the guy working at Stripes convenience store.
Right. Correct.
So no offense to Stripes convenience
Right.
store clerks,
Right.
but
Just a different standard.
It's a different standard. So you've gotten this thing. Do you think Dennis intentionally wanted to divorce you?
Absolutely not.
You don't think so?
No, I think it was. I think it was all twisted and manipulated. I think what my husband wanted was to take all the money and get all the money because when the divorce petition was filed, they only wanted one thing: the money from the Marble Falls house.
Okay, so
There's only one thing they want, and to keep everything they had.
so in
stolen.
the petition it says, "Give me the money from the Marble
It
Falls."
specifically says, "Give me the money from." It says they try to do a temporary restraining order to only retain the house from the money from the Marble Falls house, and then everything they'd stolen
Okay.
up until this point.
And so you got to see Dennis at one time, and then he was gone.
Gone.
Okay.
I never spoke to
And
him.
you don't think that Dennis did that on purpose? Some part of his mind was, I need to get back to hop in the car with whoever's giving me a ride. When he left.
Oh, when he left.
I mean,
the
he got up
closing?
and left on his own.
Oh
right?
yeah, he did. He left on his own because I think Dennis was in such a mental state that he was just. I can't even tell you because there's.
Was he following instructions?
He was following instructions, just doing what he's told. I think he was so frustrated and remember he hadn't talked to me in 4 months and he didn't know why I couldn't call him.
Did you tell
And he
him you
couldn't
love
call
him
me.
at that point?
I did. I said, honey, let's go home. I mean, I was telling him in there. Michelle and these people have known us for, like I said, 10 years, 15 years, business and everything. And we're all just like, all of us are just shocked.
Okay, so the divorce is filed.
The divorce petition is filed, yes.
The divorce is a lawsuit,
Right.
basically. He files a lawsuit.
He files a lawsuit.
And so you have this divorce petition. Did you think, I need to hire a lawyer?
That's the first thing I thought. Well, I guess I better go hire a lawyer.
All right, so
Now,
one of the things that happens when you file a divorce in Tom Green County, there's standard boilerplate legal words that say you can't sell any of the community property.
bingo.
Right?
A rule
They
11.
put that it's like an injunction. You can't go sell the silver, can't sell the guns.
Right.
Where's the silver? Where's the guns? Where are the tools?
That's the first question I asked. And here's what's interesting. When I first got served the divorce papers, my first thought was, okay, now somebody will tell me where my husband is. Really, I thought, okay, I can go to the legal system now. I had tried police, I'd tried sheriffs, I'd tried APS, I'd tried everybody. Now maybe the judges will make them tell me where my husband is. So I thought, okay, so I went and hired a lawyer. And I had never hired a lawyer for anything other than, business
Wills
stuff.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, wills and stuff like that. And
Transactional.
I was given the name of Galen Miller. And I
Okay.
went and hired Galen Miller. And the first thing I said to Galen Miller, I said, we have several problems here you need to be aware of right off the bat. The first one is, I haven't seen my husband in 6 months except for 5 minutes at closing. His health condition is horrible. I said, he may be totally brain dead at this point. I used those words. I said, I'm not even sure he's alive. So the first thing that needs to happen before any further discussion is somebody needs to present my husband in front of me so I know he's alive and what his mental condition is.
So you wanted to know if this was real.
If it's real. I didn't
Yeah.
believe it. I did not believe it. And I said, second thing is, all of my assets were taken from our home back in October. Those need to all be returned. And I said, and if my husband wants a divorce from me, That's fine.
I want half.
I want my stuff, and I want and that's okay.
Just like every girl,
right.
they want half.
I want no. I want my stuff.
Yeah, your stuff.
My stuff.
But another important thing to understand is when you got married, you were already pretty established. I mean, you were a professional woman, engineer.
When we got married, I was worth a whole lot more than my husband, not to be rude, but that was not why we got married. Yes, I was quite, and throughout the entire time, because I'm an engineer. I've always made, and I did consulting for 20 years, and I'm not rich, but I made real good money, and more than he did, because unfortunately he lost money and all that stuff. And it's just life, but it was what it was. And we got married,
All right, so let's go forward. So this divorce petition is signed. How soon did it take for them to have a hearing?
Well, here's what happened. So there was supposed to be a hearing. So I went to Galen Miller, had a meeting with him, and I told him all these things. And plus, I said the other thing is Judge Goodwin was our lawyer, and Judge Goodwin wrote our wills and wrote the gift deed on our property. So he needs to be out of the judge. He cannot be our judge. Day one. I said this needs to go.
So did Galen Miller know that Judge Goodwin was assigned to the case?
Absolutely.
So did Judge Goodwin know that he was assigned to the case?
Obviously so, because all transmissions between Galen were to Goodwin.
Okay.
All of he wrote, everything was sent to
So this is
Goodwin.
before any hearings happen? Okay.
Okay, so then this hearing is scheduled for April 9th, and I said, great, get us in the hearing, get Dennis in there, and I think we can resolve this really quickly. I'll take him home, we'll all be done, get our stuff. Because, I was serious. I said that to Gay. I said, this is just stupid. Just get him in front of me so we can resolve this, because I hadn't been able to speak to him.
So do you ever get in front of you?
No. So April 9th comes, and Sadler...
Which is about 2 weeks after you got it.
2 weeks after this, and Sadler calls and cancels the hearing because he says Dennis is too sick to come to the hearing. And I said, are you kidding me? And I went ballistic. I said, if he's too sick to come to the hearing, I need my husband. If he's too sick to come to the hearing, why are we having a divorce? I was like, are y'all crazy? And I said, I'm his power of attorney, medical power of attorney, everything else on this man. I need to know what's going on. Our finances are tied together. If this man is that sick, I need to know. Went through all of it, our insurance, everything. And they just were like, and they canceled the April 9th hearing, and nobody did anything to create another hearing. And I said,
so basically this thing, they filed a divorce, and now they canceled the first hearing, which is actually scheduled in a timely manner.
Correct.
But it's canceled because Dennis has health problems. Imagine that.
Yeah, they said too sick to come.
Too sick to come. And so now they canceled the hearing, but there's no reset. There's no reset date.
No reset. And I began to
So now
immediately.
you're in limbo.
I'm in limbo. And Galen starts.
And meanwhile, the community assets, the majority of community assets are gone.
They're gone. The community assets were actually taken the day they took him to the apartment. We can get back into that. And here's the other thing. As soon as the divorce was filed, Galen Miller, and again, instead of helping me find him and doing all that stuff, he began immediately pounding me to get all the discovery answers. So I'm sent off to go get all copies of all of our deeds and all the other stuff, and I'm spending days and weeks putting all this stuff together as I say it, ransom to be able to see my husband. Because like, you get all this, then we'll be able to do this. And I immediately began to say, get me a mediation, you get me in front of a judge, you get me anything, but you find my husband. So then that goes by, April goes by, May goes by.
Okay, so you received the divorce petition on March 27th. April, the hearing's canceled. Now we're into May. May's done.
Now here's what happens in May. I hear through the grapevine my husband's now had his leg cut off.
Okay, so it's working up his leg.
Now he's up to here. He's got his leg off. And I'm losing my mind.
Just below the knee.
Just below the knee. And I am losing my mind. And Galen knows this.
And you care for this guy because you lived with him for 30 years.
I love my husband.
Right.
And my husband loved me.
And so he's going through the most, horrific medical procedures. And you're nowhere.
They won't let me near him. And I find out. And through the grapevine, because a friend of mine who was also not allowed to know where he was going found out. And so, and I go to Galen Miller and I say, my husband's getting a leg off. I said, get my husband. And I said, on top of it all, I have one of those little carts, carts for handicap when you see them driving all over the people in town. Because I gotten it for me when I was so handicapped. And I said, I've got one of those. My husband needs it. I got new batteries put in it. Would you please give him this? Get me with him. I said, he's walking around without a leg now. I said, give me my. And Galen, they just ignored me totally. And then in May, so we now go to May. Now in May, I found out through Brandon Miller, who was the original guy out there when they did the theft.
He was a contractor.
Right, and Brandon was not allowed to know where Dennis went. They told Brandon they couldn't tell him because he might tell me.
Right.
So I find out, because he finds out through the grapevine, Dennis is over at Meadow Creek. And I go over to Meadow Creek Nursing Home. And I take my marriage license, my power of attorney, everything else, and I go over there and I beat on the door because the door's locked because of COVID and everything. They're locked. And so I say, I need to see my husband. Let me in the door. And they said, and they looked at my stuff and they said, oh, no, ma'am. your husband does not want to see you. He's mad at you. And I said, I'm sure he is. I haven't seen him in 6 months, but I'm his wife and I need to speak to him. And and they said, no, we're not going to let you in. And they said, they sent a social worker out to me. And I said, this is my husband who has had dementia and all this other stuff. Here all is all my paperwork. You let me see my husband. And they said, no. And not only that, no, we've just been told by his daughter that you're not allowed in here. You're his wife, but you're not allowed in here.
So the divorce became a wedge.
A wedge.
To keep you away from your husband
And
again.
James P. Sadler called the nursing home and threatened the nursing home that if they let me in, and then James P. Sadler sent, I now know because I got this later on, didn't know this at the time, sent a letter to Galen Miller saying if I didn't quit going to the nursing home to find my husband, he would file charges on me at the county attorney's office.
So
that's in writing.
So they've already turned they're turning the district court's divorce proceedings against you.
Against me.
And you're not getting any help from. And now they're about to turn the county attorney against you.
Right, and he threatens. I've got it right. He threatens to call the county attorney if I don't trying to talk to my husband.
And no one's raising a red flag. No one at Meadow Creek. No one at Shannon. No one in the courts. No one.
When I was at Meadow Creek, I actually called the Concho Valley Council of Governments Area on Aging Nursing Home Ombudsman, Amanda Sidonia, and I begged her to get over here and open this door and let me see my husband. And they said, "Oh no, sweetie, he just don't want to see you. We're not." So
all these in adult protective services, all these agencies are meant to protect you from this stuff, are turned against you.
And I called APS from the nursing home, and they said, "Oh no." And they've been called 6 months on my husband being abused, and I'm trying to get to my husband, and nobody would let me in.
Do you think that they were keeping your husband alive to get him to sign like paperwork and stuff like that? I mean,
they were at this point. Once he went into Meadow Creek with one leg off, Aaron turned off his do not resuscitate order from that point on because they had the divorce filed, and they were determined they were going to get everything from me. They went after.
So when he goes to the nursing home, as sick as he is, and after he's already screamed out to Shannon social workers, I just want to die and go to heaven.
Actually, he's at this point, and you can see the medical records show, and Dr. Scott Hodge was the one in the emergency when he came in. When he was put in Park Plaza Nursing Home, he went full altered state psychosis on April 29th. And from that point on, he's in full altered state psychosis.
So one more thing. Nursing homes cost a lot of money. Who's paying for this?
Well, that's the interesting part. We didn't have long-term care insurance, and so Medicare will pay for 100 days of skilled nursing or nursing home care. That's it. After that, you're on your own. So they were using up those Medicare days and nursing home days, and when he got over to Meadow Creek, they only had about 30 days left. So all that was paid for by Medicare and our personal insurance.
Right.
Okay, and then when he was in the middle of staying at Meadow Creek in July, the 100 days ran out, and then it's personal pay for everything. Nobody pays for it. It's all personal pay.
So how's he paying for it?
Well, that's when we get all the medical records and the financial records, which I've seen part of them. They were paying out of his check and out of whatever they sold off of our metals, and so far we can.
So a Social Security check.
They were using this Social Security check, but remember they were paying $1,000 a month apartment payment the whole time they were doing this as well, and they were saying they didn't have any money.
So they got about $1,500 out of Social Security, and that doesn't come near close to paying for $6,000 to $8,000 a month in a long-term care facility.
And actually, it was $21,000 a month. And when they had him out,
$21,000 a month,
something like that, yeah, $21,000 a month. And when they had him out at Compass at the place out there, it was $30,000.
So do you think they sold all the silver to pay for that?
I think they may have sold bits and pieces, but we know they didn't sell all of it because there was so much more than that.
What about the guns?
We know the guns and ammo. The day it left our house and it went to the apartment, that the guns and ammos that day went out to Christoval, Texas, to Marshall Harrell's property in Christoval, Texas, and parked there, except for the few guns that we know for sure they gave away, because we can document they gave away a .410 Henry, our .380, and several other things that we know they gave away. So whatever, and ammo and all that went with that. All those went out there. None of them were sold because Aaron and Elgin and them hate guns and stuff. None of them were sold, we don't believe. They were just given away to various relatives. And then the rest of them, sat out there until, I'll squeeze my leg around here, until I forced Marshall Harrell to bring them back to my home. And I have a video of Marshall Harrell returning those items to my home in March of 2022 after Dennis died.
All right, so the first thing that happens when I contact the other side, I contact the attorney for the other side, Mr. Greg Lisson, and first thing he says, she's a pothead.
Yeah.
Basically, she was arrested for marijuana.
Right.
So this is where it gets kind of weird. I mean, you're a cancer patient. You have a pretty serious cancer condition.
I was diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer.
Okay.
And then they did.
But let's stop. And I'm not advocating marijuana use at all, but you use marijuana to prevent nausea from chemotherapy.
From the chemotherapy, and then I had cervical cancer, and so they did a hysterectomy, and also in my cervical cancer, the treatment, you get internal and external radiation, and I got double the treatment of normal because they messed up the tumor, and so all my radiations and everything and all were in this area. So my intestines and all that stuff had a lot of mess in them, and then the chemotherapy messes with everything.
So you're an occasional pot smoker.
Yes, sir, and because it helps me eat.
And so this is before Dennis left. You were
Right.
upset because you had to go take him off with the checking accounts or something like
Right.
that. And you were very upset, and you drove the long way home.
Well,
and you lit up a joint.
Here's what happened. It'd been a crazy week and all whatever, and I actually went into Palmer Feed, which I've been going to for 20 plus years to get some feed for the ranch. And that day, and I think it was a Friday. It was Friday. I think it was whatever day it was. And I was driving home. And I decided to go Great Creek Way because it's a back way to Knickerbocker and whatever. I wasn't in a big hurry. And I had happened to leave a joint in my car. Normally I smoke on my place, and I'm at my place. And
you live on 300 acres.
300 acres in Knickerbocker, in the middle of nowhere. And and you know what it was? And I thought, and I reached in actually to get some gum or something, and I saw it, and I thought, you know what? Normally it wouldn't. I thought, well, and then so I lit it up. And I'm going through Great Creek. And I happened to turn, just when I turned off, I went through an area that I didn't realize was 35 miles an hour, and I think I was going 42. So they pulled me over for speeding, and I was...
And it was like Beavis and Butthead
And it
moment.
was Beavis and a Butthead moment. And I'd done something really stupid, and I couldn't believe it, and then I'd lit up, and so they smelled it. And immediately. And I think I had 2 joints total in my car. And that's what they did. And then once he pulled me over... And I said it. I said, "Yeah, And he took me out of the car to do a search and all that for drugs. And then I realized that in my purse I had my concealed carry weapon, my .380.
So that becomes not just giving you a ticket. That becomes take you down to jail.
Take you down to jail.
Charge you with a
high end because you got a gun and you got drugs and a gun.
Anyway, so you were able to get that. You were able to work through that.
Work through all that. Talk to the judge. Got that all supposedly expunged from my record.
And you're not a lawbreaker. I mean, you're not out. You have a clean record. I've already looked.
Yes, I've never in my entire life been arrested or had any problems.
Now you're going through. Your husband has died. Now he died. And you think, after he died, now you have to go through probate, and you still have no idea where all the community property is, the silver, anything. Plus, you have this $750,000 bill from Shannon. You have lots of liabilities out there.
Let's put the big one on there. My mother is owed $750,000 that's on the estate but we're supposed to some of the assets.
So anyway, the probate is getting strung out, and they have a new complaint that you dumped garbage in their yard.
Yes.
So
yes.
So and now the probate has to go through the hearing on that first, and that keeps getting delayed.
Right.
Meanwhile, where is this community property?
I have no idea.
So it's like the delay tactics. You might be dead before anyone, and then they won't care.
It's been 2.5 years, and I don't know where they've been dispersed. And also, each of the people in this, I'm sure, got something out of it because we know Sadler has a claim against the estate for $20,000.
So he wants $20,000 in legal fees.
Yeah.
All right.
For Aaron.
And and then the next thing that happens is you are sitting at your house in the morning, early chippy morning, February 14th. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. Tell me what happened.
Okay. So, and let me back up just real quickly on the trash thing. I had gotten so frustrated with them because I couldn't get my stuff back. And
so you strategically
and so
put stuff in there.
I went, and I was so frustrated. So the first time I ever broke the law, and I threw trash on their lawns. I didn't get on their lawns, threw trash on their lawns, and I was emailing them like crazy trying to get my stuff back. Give me my stuff. And they just completely ignored me. So then they took me to court for that. So anyway, then that goes on. And I've got my lawyer, Kurt Hawkins, now working on the probate. And so we go along in February 14th, and now and I'm still just all I'm trying to do is get my stuff back. February 14th on Valentine's Day, and I've gone to everybody now for help and all this stuff. And I'm sitting and I'm in.
Before this though, you went to the FBI.
I went to the FBI.
So you went to the sheriff's office because this is out in the county,
right?
And the sheriff did run a couple traps. He went and interviewed some people, and they all denied it, and they said that and so the sheriff decided that it was a civil matter, not a criminal matter, which is a legitimate thing for the sheriff to make that determination. But hold on a second. And then you go to the FBI, and the FBI actually comes to your house.
Right. Comes to my house. And let me back up. When the sheriff did the interview, when Sergeant Hammer did the interview, he only interviewed the 3 thieves.
Well, he's just looking for...
And 2 of the 3 thieves told him I was growing pot on my place.
Ah. They told
him that's in the They told him that I was growing marijuana
in the police report,
and
says
that I was
that.
trying to kill my
That's
husband.
right.
And that I was trying to kill my husband.
Okay.
And my husband thought I was trying to kill him. They told him that, and so so that's what they told him.
So the sheriff decides not to run the criminal docket on that, and he says it's a civil case. Go to civil case. Which in the civil court now you're getting delayed, just like the divorce.
Right. Just like the divorce never went to court. Now the probate's never gone to court.
Right. And meanwhile, you have $500,000 in silver and another, maybe $1.5 million in tools and equipment, everything like that.
And all the other, just wandering around.
Okay. So you went to the FBI and you asked for help, and the FBI agent seemed amenable, and he came out and visited your place.
Correct.
And then the next thing you know, the FBI told the sheriff that I smelled marijuana inside her house, and she's got a greenhouse.
And I've got a greenhouse. I've got an industrial-sized greenhouse I've had a greenhouse for 40 years. And when I moved out there, we put in a big greenhouse.
So then the next thing on Valentine's Day in the morning, it's kind of cool.
45 degrees. It was cool morning.
And they knocked on your door, and it was the sheriff's department.
Well, and here's what happened. I had gone back to get dressed in my bathroom, and I was in my bathrobe, and all of a sudden my dog starts barking, and I'm like, well, that's weird, because I'd not heard anybody come in. And he barks and barks and barks, and then I'm thinking, that's really weird. And all of a sudden I hear people beating on my doors, and I'm like, what? And it was a lot of it. And then all of a sudden I hear beating on my bedroom door, and I'm kind of freaking out. I'm in my bathrobe, not dressed, no underwear, just fixing to get in the shower. And I go to the door, and I open the door, and I'm barefoot and whatever. And I look out the door, and there are 10 sheriffs, CSI, trailers, and Sheriff Hammer standing in front of me. And he says, we're serving a search warrant on your property because we have been told and we believe that you are growing and distributing marijuana out here, and you need to step outside.
So all of the circumstantial evidence that the sheriff's, and I've read the affidavit to get the search warrant, all the circumstantial evidence, the one that gets me the most is you went to the FBI for help, and then they turned it on you.
Right.
And next thing you know, this single widow out in the middle of the country has an armada of law enforcement all over her property. And what did they find? And
what they found was a grand total in my master bathroom, which is where I have my little bit of, they found a less than a half an ounce. I don't even know if it was that much of marijuana.
So it was like half a bag?
Yeah, no, it was a tiny little bit in a bag.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, okay. Tiny little bit in a bag, and the tray that I cleaned it on, and they found a few seeds. And the seeds, I'm a master gardener, save seeds, but the seeds are good for making a tea. So I, did a little bit of seeds. There were like 10 seeds, I don't know much. And that's what they found.
And so they arrested you, drug you down to the Tom Green County Detention Center, got your picture and everything. So now, when you go to probate in front of that judge, you're going to look like
shit.
Well, don't say that on the
pardon me. I'm going to look, which is exactly
look like poo-poo.
Well, which is, and that was exactly what the divorce was. It's all about presenting an image, and this whole thing has been about. I mean, just everybody keeps saying, "Oh, your husband hated you, wanted a divorce," but I never could get in front of a judge to talk about it. But this is the thing, and so this will be done the same way. And the other thing they did in their anxiousness, there were several things they did in their anxiousness to come do this,
to come
search my property,
looking for your marijuana,
looking for my marijuana growing greenhouse.
And have you ever grown marijuana in your greenhouse?
No, but I do grow tomatoes like crazy. I've had some fabulous tomatoes. And I am a master gardener. Yeah. And John Begnaud was my teacher. And John Begnaud has been all over my place because we went out and identified all the wild. Right. So yes, sir. For 20 years, I've been a master gardener.
But you don't grow marijuana plants.
No, sir. Okay. No, sir. And no, I specialize in vegetables and flowers.
And no one kind of called you and said, "Are you growing marijuana out there?"
No.
Okay.
No.
They just showed up and said, and they didn't find any.
No.
They found nothing but the little bag with the little bit in there.
In my master bathroom.
And they charge you with less than half an ounce.
I think it's under 2 ounces is whatever it is. Yeah. And I don't know if they go less than that. And they took my house apart. They trashed my house. They dropped mud everywhere. It was intentional. They made a freaking mess.
You think it's intentional?
They intentionally, they came in the bedroom door, which they didn't have to, which is the only place you can get mud. They didn't come up the sidewalks or anything else. And on the carpets and everything, it was
Okay.
It was a mess.
So you got to go through this.
Right.
What's next? The probate hearing is in March?
No, we don't have another hearing scheduled yet. We're still waiting to get the hearing because they just canceled the hearing in February because Donna is no longer available.
Okay, Donna's the ex-wife.
Ex-wife.
So basically, we're in limbo on probate. And meanwhile, you're getting search warrants delivered on you. I can't imagine if they came in and searched. I mean, someone thinking at home, if you had a dozen cops go through your house, how many felonies could they find? You know, just ask yourself that. You don't have to answer it to me, but ask yourself. But
as a woman alone, do you know how terrifying that was? And what that's done to my terror at my house? I am terrified now.
It's kind of like your house is your comfort area.
Not anymore. My house in 1998, we bought that place. That's been the safest place on earth, and now it is a terrifying place to be because they can come over my gate at any time.
What do you think would bring justice to this? Would you like to get your? I mean, obviously, you want to get your stuff back.
I'd like to have my stuff back. That's the only thing I asked for from the time the divorce was filed, or anything else. Even when the guys left, I said, just don't take my stuff. Whatever. Get my stuff back. That's what I would like, and I would like for these people to have some kind of consequences for all the damage they've done. Now, I don't know what that is, but they went and falsified records. They broke HIPAA laws. They broke all kinds of. They abused to me alone of all that. I don't know how you define all that, but I would like. I mean, that's all I've asked for. Just give me my stuff back, and that shouldn't be hard to do.
Well,
and we have an agreed order that told them to do that.
I thank you for coming on because I think hearing it from you, and if you've gotten this far in the interview, you're obviously interested. I think it's important for you to understand what goes on. I think I've talked to some legal professionals, and they're saying one of the first things you should have done, in hindsight, if you weren't intimidated, was get guardianship. You go on the legal offense and get a guardianship for your husband.
Right.
That would have solved a lot of the problems. But you didn't know that, and most people don't know that.
And here's the thing: I was in the process of using my power of attorney, and again, I'm an engineer, so I follow the law, so I've got a power of attorney. So I was pulling.
And you also feel like the state agencies would be able to see through this, but you had a lot. They had a lot of smoke thrown at them, like a divorce filing and things like that,
marijuana arrests and all kinds of things. So that's what they did, and so that was part of the problem. And remember, I didn't know my husband was missing, and I'd already started pulling him off checking accounts. That's another reason he was mad. I'd pulled him off the loan accounts to try to get that control. And you're right, I didn't think to get a guardianship, and I had a power of attorney. I thought.
That's all I need.
I kept telling Galen, I've got, and yes, sir. And hindsight, like I said, is 2020, and I've learned a lot. But yes, sir.
So follow this through the probate cases,
correct,
and maybe through the criminal courts if it goes
it's
there.
Probably going to be in the criminal courts.
And this is the Jackie Chestnut story. Jackie, thank you for being on our show.
Thank y'all very much.
I'm Joe Hyde, and back to y'all.
Thank you. So thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Kano stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Kano's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo. Well, that's it. There's her side of the story. Believe it or don't believe it, that's up to you. This has been the Live Daily News Show. We're here every weekday at the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to be giving you news and an interview just like you saw today. For everybody here at San Angelo Live, we will see you guys tomorrow.